Hi, this is Dylan and welcome back to NFL Updates Express. For our first Thanksgiving matchup, we have the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Michigan to take on the Detroit Lions. Now, the Eagles will be starting Mark Sanchez in this matchup, which will lead to some interesting battles on offense and on defense. He will have to really focus on running the ball to DeMarco Murray and making key passes to receivers like Jordan Matthews in order to get the job done. The Lions, on the other hand, are coming off a recent upset over the Green Bay Packers, so they'll definitely be motivated to get this job done on their home court in Thanksgiving. So, overall, I think this will be a very, very back-and-forth matchup, but I think the Eagles will be able to get the job done on Thanksgiving.
The first Thanksgiving Day matchup is the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Ford Field to take on the Detroit Lions. Now, the Lions, fresh off of a big win against the Oakland Raiders, will like to win 2 in a row and maybe get some respect back after their horrific start to the season 0-5, and they'll take on a Philadelphia Eagles team that's desperate and hungry for a win. Mark Sanchez in his last game didn't do so well against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he'll be looking to rebound against the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. The Eagles have some weapons like DeMarco Murray and Ryan Matthews, their 2 running backs, but the Lions have weapons of their own with Calvin Johnson Jr. and Golden Tate ready to steal the show on Thanksgiving Day. It'll be a pretty entertaining game, but overall I'm taking the big upset as the Detroit Lions end up beating the Philadelphia Eagles.
For the next Thanksgiving matchup, we have the Carolina Panthers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, this matchup should be pretty interesting. For the Panthers, losses are hard to come by. They've just been having a fantastic season. The Cowboys, on the other hand, haven't been having the strongest of years, with the loss of Tony Romo early in the season and Dez Bryant as well. In this game, I think the offense is really going to have to step up over the Panthers' defense in order to get the job done, as Cam Newton will just be too much for the Cowboys' defense. Overall, I think this game could be sort of half and half, leading either way during the entire game, but overall, I think the Panthers will get the job done.
It's a great Thanksgiving Day matchup between the Carolina Panthers as they travel to AT&T Stadium to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, the Panthers are undefeated, as we all should know by now, but they are underdogs to the Dallas Cowboys, who are currently 3-7. Now, true, the Cowboys are a much different team with Tony Romo back in the fold, but still, that should serve as disrespect to the Panthers, who are 10-0 on the year. I mean, what's not to like about the Panthers? They have a great defense, a strong running game, and a quarterback who is playing at an MVP level. But of course, you have Tony Romo and the Dallas Cowboys, who are still alive in the NFC East race, and with Dez Bryant and Darren McFadden, anything is possible for the Cowboys. I don't see the Cowboys winning, though, as the Panthers are on too much of a hot streak, and even though the Cowboys can make it interesting, I just see the Panthers with their running game. They have a formula for success on their path to 16-0. It will be a close game, but at the end of the day, Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers with Greg Olsen and Jonathan Stewart will roll over the Dallas Cowboys for the win.
For our last Thanksgiving game, we have the Chicago Bears facing the Green Bay Packers. This rivalry is just huge, and the stakes will definitely be upped on Thanksgiving Day. Now, the Bears have had a fairly mediocre season, getting some good wins and some bad losses, and overall are sitting pretty right where they want to be. The Packers, on the other hand, are doing very, very well for themselves. They've got one notable loss against Detroit, and that was at home, so it was a bad one, but overall have just been getting plenty of wins. And overall on Thanksgiving, I think the Packers will just be too much for the Bears. It'll be in the cold Wisconsin weather under the bright lights of Thanksgiving, and Aaron Rodgers will sure to be running the show. The Packers get the win.
It's a classic rivalry renewed when the monsters of the Midway, the Chicago Bears, take on Aaron Rodgers and the Cheeseheads, the Green Bay Packers. Now, Jay Cutler historically hasn't really played that well against Green Bay, but this game could be different. He has motivation on Thanksgiving Day to perform, and with a two-headed monster, Forte is healthy, and Jeremy Langford, he's exploded on the scene, this game could get interesting. But the Packers are a much better team. They have 2 good running backs of their own in James Starks and Eddie Lacy, and a receiving core that is much better than Chicago's. But the Bears defense, well, they've improved. Pernell McPhee has been leading their troops, and also they have Kyle Fuller, a cornerback that is pretty feisty and can get the job done at times. It'll be an interesting game, and with Cutler, he hasn't thrown a multi-interception game this year, which has been very good. So overall, I think it will be a much closer game than people expect and could come down to the wire, but overall, I see the Green Bay Packers taking the game in style. The first game on Thanksgiving Day is the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Detroit Lions. Let's see who Harmony picks. Thinking about Philadelphia. And it's a quick one for the Philadelphia Eagles. The second game is the Carolina Panthers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. Let's see who Harmony picks. Oh, and she starts with the Panthers, but it looks like she picks the Dallas Cowboys to win the game. The final game is the Chicago Bears taking on the Green Bay Packers. Let's see who Harmony chooses. Thinking about Chicago. Going to Green Bay, maybe. And it looks like... Oh, not Green Bay. And it is the Chicago Bears. In the Paw Print Predictions recap, the first game, it seems like it's going to be a big blowout with the Philadelphia Eagles taking the win early and getting the big win. The second game between the Panthers and the Cowboys, it looks like the Panthers will take the lead early, but the Cowboys will ultimately steal the game and end Carolina's perfect season. Finally, we have the Bears and the Packers with a fluctuating game throughout most of it, but it looks like the Bears get another big upset over the rival in Lambeau Field.
Here are my super sleepers for Thanksgiving Day football. For my first super sleeper, I have Jordan Matthews, the wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been having a pretty decent season so far, and I think Thanksgiving will give him his chance to shine against an interesting defense from the Lions. For my other sleeper, I have Jason Witten. This tight end for the Cowboys is going to make a strong stand against a tough Panthers defense, and I think that'll really help propel the Cowboys to keep it as a close matchup. And for my last player, I have Clay Matthews for Green Bay. I have a feeling Jay Cutler will rely on his running game a lot over an interesting Green Bay secondary, so Clay Matthews will really have to have his head in the game to blitz Cutler and tackle any runs that come his way.
For my super sleepers picks, first off is the Carolina Panthers wide receiver Ted Ginn Jr. and Devin Funchess. With Greg Olsen manning most of the defense's attention, Cam Newton will need to look to his receivers to be effective in Dallas. Next is Sean Lee, the linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys. And he's finally healthy, and Sean Lee is ready to make a big impact. And so if Lee can do his part in shutting down Carolina's rushing attack, then Dallas could be in line to spoil Carolina's undefeated season. Lastly is Detroit Lions wide receiver Golden Tate. And Calvin Johnson Jr. in past years, well, he's had monster games, so defensively, he will be the focus. So that means that Golden Tate will need to step up and be an integral part in the Detroit Lions game plan if they hope to pull out the W.
For my first food comparison, I'm comparing the Philadelphia Eagles to cranberry sauce. The cranberry sauce is always on the table and just sits there. Some people go for it and some people can't stand the taste of it, just like how the Eagles are right in the midst of their division, trying to spice things up. For my next food comparison, I'm comparing the Detroit Lions to turducken. Turducken is a very rare occasion to find on the table, as nobody really seems to like it or does good when it comes to people eating it, just like how the Lions are really inconsistent with doing well in the NFL.
For my food comparison, I compare the Carolina Panthers and their defense in general to stuffing. Now, it may not taste good all the time, but it always gets the job done. The Panthers' defense is like that. They're saying keep pounding, and their team might not always look the prettiest or put up the best stats, but they always lead to wins. I compare the Dallas Cowboys to pie crust. Now, you would think this is kind of weird, but like Tony Romo without the Dallas Cowboys, well, the Cowboys collapse. Same thing without a pie without pie crust. It's just not the same. For my last food comparison, I'm comparing the Chicago Bears to a bottle of cold apple cider. Now, you know when you start pouring in apple cider into a glass, well, you see all the bubbles, and that is the Chicago Bears. They fizzle at the beginning of the game, and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't score a lot of points. But as it settles down, well, then it's ready for the apple cider to drink, just like the Bears are to deliver a big fourth quarter win.
For my last food comparison, I'm comparing the Green Bay Packers to the Thanksgiving turkey. The turkey is always the center of attention on the table and always does well in the stomachs of its eaters, just like how the Green Bay Packers always seem to succeed. Here are my two selections for this Stardom-Situm fantasy analysis. So, who do you want to start? Well, that would be the Panthers defense. They're going to have a big day against Tony Romo, who's just returning off of injury. Des Bryant is also recently returning off of injury, and he won't be stepping up his game quite like the Panthers defense will be. The Panthers defense will definitely have to shut down Jason Witten, but if they do that, everything should click into place fantasy-wise. So, who do you want to sit? Well, that would be Jay Cutler. He's taking on an interesting defense in the Packers, and he just hasn't been having the best of years anyway. So, he's going to be handing the ball off to Matt Forte more than anybody, and the Packers defense will figure that out and be able to shut it down quick and score some fantasy numbers.
For my fantasy analysis picks, a player to start at all times would be Calvin Johnson Jr. Now, he's had big Thanksgiving games in the past, and I expect that to continue against the Philadelphia Eagles secondary that hasn't been too great. A player to stay away from would be Darren McFadden or the Cowboys running backs in general, because against a Carolina defense featuring Luke Kuechly and Thomas Davis shutting down the run, I wouldn't take any chances. Bench the Cowboys running backs.